Well, welcome to Lake Mead National Recreation Area and the site of a B-29. The B-29 was actually a part of a very unique class of high-altitude bombers. This particular B-29 went down in Lake Mead over 50 years ago. So that resource, that aircraft, has been on the bottom of Lake Mead for over 50 years and just recently rediscovered as a part of our submerged cultural resources.
The B-29 that's laying at the bottom of the Overton Arm in Lake Mead was actually built in the Boeing plant in Wichita, Kansas, several days after the war with Japan ended, and it was still delivered to the Army. Subsequent to its delivery, it was stripped of its armament and reclassified for reconnaissance. The actual B-29 project was a cutting-edge technology. It was the single most advanced aircraft that came out of the Second World War. The B-29 was a high-altitude bomber. The range was huge, the plane was huge. It was designed to fly higher, further, and faster than any bomber prior to that time.
What happened with the B-29 here at Lake Mead was that it was on a scientific mission doing atmospheric testing. On July 21st, 1948, they were doing a mission collecting data. They did their high atmospheric run over the Grand Canyon, swept around over to Lake Mead, and ended up doing their low data collecting. The pilot misjudged his elevation over the lake and accidentally hit the lake, bounced about a quarter mile, and then settled in. Well, the National Park Service knew about this aircraft from the minute it crashed. They were part of the rescue crew that came in and were able to extract the survivors. Well, in 1994, we had the aircraft determined eligible to the National Register of Historic Places on the historic significance to the Cold War history of this area. So what we're trying to do here at Lake Mead is make sure that we're able to protect the site, but also allow heritage tourism and a recreational opportunity for technical diving or even recreational diving, depending on the level of the lake. So we're trying to be able to be stewards as well as be able to provide the public access to this, and not just through diving activities, but hopefully through outreach and education with some of the documentation and film that we've been collecting on the aircraft itself.
What we've learned by looking at the B-29 and documenting it, the plane hit, tore off the number 2 engine. The number 2 engine flipped up underneath the wing, tore off the left horizontal stabilizer, and when that happened, the other wing kicked down and hit the lake, and the number 3 and the number 4 engines were also torn off. That's what you're going to see down there when you make your dive. The front of the fuselage, the cockpit, is smashed in where the plane impacted on the bottom, and then the 3 engines are gone. The left side horizontal stabilizer is torn off, and the back of the plane is broken, both as a result of ditching and from hitting on the bottom. The way that the Park Service has set up this site, along with the other people that we've worked with, is that you'll come down on a downline to 2 huge blocks, and then you're going to make a crossover. It's going to be about 98 feet on a polypropylene line. There's a buoy in the middle to keep the line off the bottom, and then that's going to go to another block, and then from that block you should be within sight of the tail. There's a smaller line that goes from the block closer to the tail, and then from there you're up and on the plane. One of the things that's going to happen is as you get off the crossover line, you're going to look up and the tail is going to be standing over the top of you. And the first mistake that people are going to make is they're going to want to stop and they're going to want to take a picture of themselves in front of the numbers on the tail. Now, the thing that you need to understand about this B-29 is that all of the control surfaces, they're covered with fabric. Okay, which means that if you touch them, if you put your hand on them, if you put your foot on them, if you step on them at all, then that fabric is going to get punched through and the plane's going to get damaged. Now, the way that this has been set up is that the amount of damage will change the number of divers that can come onto this site and experience this dive. So if there's no damage, then more people can come and see it. And if there's more damage, then fewer people are going to come and see it. So do your best. You're going to have good weight control. You're going to have good trim. And do not make the mistake of stopping right at the very beginning to stand on the horizontal stabilizer and take a picture of the wing numbers. There's lots of stuff to see on the B-29. It was a very sophisticated piece of machinery. It was a very sophisticated airplane. There are gauges, there are dials, there's loose materials down there, all of which we spent a lot of time documenting. So, and all of that adds to the integrity of the site. It tells a little bit about the story. It tells about the mission. There's a parachute that's still there. The crew took that off before they scrambled out. There's all sorts of stuff that is all a part of this particular B-29 story and the larger B-29 story. All of those things are important. They're important to see, they're important to photograph, they're important to enjoy, and they're also important to leave there.
So there's already a growing interest on the part of the dive community, not only in this country but around the world, relative to the opportunity that the B-29 will present to them. To be able to come to this particular spot and take advantage of this unique dive experience within Lake Mead National Recreation Area. That experience is one that you can't find in almost any other location. The National Park Service, working in partnership with the dive community, actually has developed a management plan that allows for the dive community to actually get down and see this very special site, but do it in a way that's sensitive to the long-term protection of this unique resource. Beyond that, there's a growing interest historically on the part of just the general public in the B-29 and that cultural resource. And that not only creates an opportunity in terms of the B-29, but it also creates an opportunity in terms of other submerged cultural resources in Lake Mead. There are a huge number of submerged cultural resources, maybe not exactly like the B-29, but if you think back, before the reservoir was established, there were communities that existed below the lake level of what is now Lake Mead National Recreation Area. What an incredible resource for people to get out and explore and become familiar with and enjoy as a part of their visit to a unit of their national park system.